Forgiveness is huge. It really is, starting with ourselves. We got to forgive ourselves. There's so much forgiveness that we need to do for ourselves and for other people, for our family members, for our friends. Welcome. Glad that you guys are here. So just do a quick icebreaker, just to introduce myself. I am Todd Breitenstein. As Zoe said, a lot of people call me the Grateful Gardener because I'm grateful to be gardening. Just have some fun pictures up there for you guys of me and my 1980s get up with my BMX bike, and my children and I in Cincinnati. The year I was born, they happened to win the World Series over our beloved Red Sox here. And my son was born in 2004, the year that the Red Sox broke the curse. So one of my favorite moments was he and I getting to share that experience. I lived in Cincinnati for quite some time, and my roots are there. And then this is just one of my first real vegetable gardening experience when I started really embracing. I had always been a gardener and a landscaper, and always growing things in different community gardens, and my dad has had a garden, as it said, since I was as long as I can remember. But this was just kind of my first go around, and that's our front lawn there with sunflowers and watermelon and hot peppers. So that's just me, just so you can get a little bit of a taste of Todd. So I just want to welcome you guys here, just do a bit of a grounding, just maybe take, close your eyes and roll your shoulders, just be here, just settle in and relax, and just know that I am so grateful for you for being here. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to get to share this experience with you. Let us just really realize that no matter where we are on our journey in life, there's no failures. There's only experiences that bring us to where we are, and welcome that moment. The past is gone. The future is quite a ways off. The only thing that exists is this moment. In this moment, anything is possible. Everything exists right now. The past and the future just are a figment of our imagination when we accept where we are. And just know that abundance and gratitude are one and the same, and may they be plentiful for you all. So that, believe it or not, is a photograph that I took. I do want to just kind of say that what we're going to be talking about tonight is photographs that I took. There is probably only 2 or 3 photos in all of the somewhere around 100 slides that I have that are not photographs that I took, and you'll see why they're ones that I didn't take when we get there. But otherwise, everything is photographs that I took. And this is the reflection of the sun and some murk on a pond over here in Norwell at my favorite place, Norris Reservation. I see a whale breaching the water, but that's just me. I know that there's things in there for you too. So the journey that we're going to talk about began in the summer of 2020 when I was looking at this tree growing over a rock. And I was like, wow, this tree is growing over a rock. And something happened that day that was new for me. I could feel my thought, and my thought was from my heart, because it was love and admiration for this tree overcoming an adversity that I know that I don't have the strength to do. I certainly couldn't live over a rock in that way, and I certainly wouldn't be that malleable. I'm a lot more rigid, and I could feel it through my whole body, though. It was very strange, and I thought, wow, I need to see more trees like this. And for whatever reason, I believe in that moment, I opened up a doorway for the trees to come into my life and move me in ways so that I would see them. And it's it's something that has become very, very apparent to me, both through science, through experience, through talking to other people, is that our hearts have the ability to actually think. And there are two places where synapses fire within our hearts that are the same as our brains. And in fact, our heart sends out more thoughts to our body, more signals to our body than our brain. So our heart is in charge of so much more going on in our bodies than we had ever imagined. I like to say this, that our heart is infinitely more powerful than our mind can possibly imagine, right? So this is all the information that started coming to me when I was on this journey that started in 2020 in the fall. And then, wouldn't you know it, day after day, everywhere I go, door would open for me to take a walk in the woods, to go for a walk in the morning. And before you know it, I just started seeing trees that were overcoming obstacles that were so admirable, that just were so truly inspiring to me. I literally would be taken, like I would lose my breath sometimes, because I'd just be like, wow, like I'm so, oh poor me, in so many ways of my life where I just don't have that kind of strength. Like I can't live over a pond. I can't deal with it if my basement floods without getting all fired up and aggravated, yet just the trees just keep going and going without ever a complaint, right? They give to each other. So we're going, as we go through this, you're going to see there's a bit of a theme that the trees are either overcoming an extreme adversity or they're giving something to other trees. And so I am very happy to say that almost every picture that's in here is from the South Shore. A lot of them are from Norwell, so they're all around us, which is super cool that we live in this place where there's so much access to nature and woodlands. And so between Norris Reservation, the Turkey Hill and Whitney Thayer Woods area off of 3A and Cohasset, all the way over to Wampatuck, there's just miles and miles of trails that we can enjoy for ourselves. And so I just started taking pictures of trees, you know, just doing things amazing. This is actually in Vermont, though. So this one did slip in there. It's from Vermont, but what I love about it is that she's got her hand up in there. She's exploring it, and we can learn so much from the children. Like, she was in heaven just poking around in there, right? That I can't. She knew how cool it was, and she wasn't even 6, but she was like, wow, and like, I need to check it out, like what's up in there. And there's so much that we learn from that when we're willing to look and see what a child is going to do. They're going to explore, they're going to poke their head into things. So there's so much opportunity for us to grow just as people when we embrace that being like a child, like to explore without inhibition and explore without judging things first. So I have just a bunch of pictures, and as we go through, we're just going to kind of admire what trees are capable of. I started thinking to myself, I need to show not only that these trees are growing out of rocks, but I need to be able to show that they're actually alive too. So then I started like trying to like hold my camera in certain ways so that way I could get like the fact that they're alive, because I'm actually using the phone, the same phone that I'm presenting on, but like, this tree is alive, but it's growing out of a rock, right? Its roots are in between rocks. Like, that's where it's growing, and it's thriving. Like, that's a good sized tree to be in those conditions. Truly, truly amazing. And all around it, there was other trees that, were succumbing to the conditions. Some last way longer than others. Some thrive way more. It's all about whether they're exposed to too much wind or too much water, just depending, but they all seem to find a way. So this one's one of my favorites, because not only is it like completely crooked and its roots are all exposed, you see down here on the left where the roots are all like up above the ground, but then it's got other ones that have fallen onto it. It's landed in the V of the branches there, and I'm standing there thinking to myself, man, like that's probably its cousin, or maybe its brother. They're probably related. Like if my cousin fell over onto me and was just leaning on me all the time, I would be so upset. I would just like be like, I can't handle this. Like, you got to get off. But it's not. It's like, it's just growing. It's like, not only is it in totally like out of like, but then it gets dumped on and it just keeps going. And there's so much to just be inspired by that it's not going to quit until that thing gets dragged down or eaten or catches on fire or something. It's going to keep thriving, at least the best it can. And that's incredible. I like to think of this one, if there was alcohol around, it would be the biggest drunk in town, because it would just be like, all right, I'm out of here. Like, you guys get off, because I'm heading to the bar. This is in the Blue Hills. This is also one of my favorites. So I have this one in 2 seasons. This is actually the path, up the Skyline path on the back of the Blue Hills. So this is the tree. So it's overcoming the adversity of the actual landscape, but then it's the path. And so it's got people walking all over it, stepping on its toes all the time. And it just keeps going. I had the most amazing experience here with this tree. Just up past it, there's like a bit of an open area where you can kind of sit and the sun comes out. And I had just been explaining to my friend how amazing this tree was. Like, I was all jazzed up, like, this tree, its roots are all exposed, it's totally thriving, it's giving back, it's like so beautiful. And then this like couple came along, right? And they actually sat in the spot where I was leading us up to sit. And I'm like, guy, you're like in my seat, like, what are you doing? Like, that's where I was planning on sitting, don't you know? And I was totally kidding with them, like, just like smiling and happy. Well, it turns out I went off on like a Todd rant about how the trees are so amazing and you got to go down there and see this tree. And I explained to him how the roots are working with the fungi and the sun and all of like my stuff, my garden knowledge, which I'm going to try not to do. There's one little bit where I can't resist, but it actually ended up being the lady's birthday. And she was like, you just gave me the greatest gift, because your joy about this tree is so exciting to me. Like, nobody ever stops us when we're on a walk in the woods and then basically just goes off and tells us all about how amazing this tree is and how we should be so grateful for the tree. You just can change my complete day. And like, it wasn't my intention, but like then afterwards I was like, wow, like maybe like there's something to this. Like, you really should be blabbing to people all the time about how amazing the trees are. And here we are. So you guys get to be a captive audience for my blabbing about how the trees are so amazing. So you can find that one. This is a root of a tree. So I love to just remind myself what I am, which is love. Like, that's at the center of all the things that I experience when I'm in the forest, because I love the trees. And so I think to myself, what am I? I am love. It's what I was created for, is to give and receive love. It's why I have a heart. And then here this root is growing like a heart. So I have a few of those in here, because I just go along and here I am like walking through the woods and there's a root that's growing like a heart. So I just want to, share my love. So now I'm like driving and I can't help it. And I'm like trying to take pictures of cars. So this is how excited I get, is that of like the trees, like they're everywhere. Once you start to like, it became a thing, like sitting in traffic, like everywhere I went, I started seeing that there was trees like growing out of the faces of cliffs everywhere. But normally I just whiz right by. I don't even like know. But then once that moment had happened, I'm sitting there and I look, and like, these are just the 2 that I found, but I literally am out the sunroof. I'm like trying to catch this one. But it is incredible when you really start to pay attention all the places where trees are growing that we don't really realize. We just kind of think that it's the forest, but in actuality, they're growing out of everything in any place that they possibly can take hold. They're finding a way and just rocking it literally out of the rocks. So this is just kind of getting the idea like of how tall they get over your head. There's a little guy growing right out of the crack up there. Big one's right on the top. You can see this one that's coming out of the face of the cliff right there. And that one has one of my very favorite things is Umbilicia cara, which is those flakes that are on the rocks. It's actually a fungus that's pretending to be a lichen. That's a super cool plant that's all over the rocks on the South Shore. You'll see it now. They look like leaves. I love that plant, or fungi. So now I'm getting into just kind of like a raggedy cliff. This is one walk, one area where the next few pictures are going to come from. And it's just like this steep hill with all different types of trees growing out of it. At the base of the trail, here's this monster of a tree growing right out of the base of this sort of cliff. I guess if you were standing on the top of it, you'd probably call it a cliff. But you can just see how large of a tree it was. And you can see that even further on up, there was other trees growing out of it. So just taking advantage of any place they can to find a foothold and to, thrive and do what they want to do, which is reach for the light and make a seed ultimately. Same tree, just a little closer, right? So I'm just being silly there with the perspective thing, but like just changing that just angle just a little bit brings you to a totally different understanding. Like to me, the one on the left looks like it's like this tree over a big massive boulder, but really it was actually not that big. But still, like, I swear they do it just for our entertainment. I really do. Like it literally could have grown like 6 inches in the other side and wouldn't have had to do all of that. Like, yeah, but I think I'm going to grow around this rock. I'm going to hold this rock here. This is, I believe this is Whitney Thayer Woods, actually. Right out of the big boulder. Again, smushed into a boulder, this one with a hole in it in a boulder field. 1 or 2 trees either growing together or one tree that got damaged when it was young. Oh, that tree was totally alive. And you can, because so on a tree, the only part of it that's actually alive is the outside of the tree. So like the bark and then 2 layers of the tree are alive, everything else year after year. So at the center of the tree, it's the dead, it's the heartwood, and then each year, each successive ring is the new alive part of the tree. So actually, that's a great question. I have photos of that as we get into it, like the real, like when I arrive at like the moment for me, when I realize that all of this is happening, you'll be able to see exactly your question. There's an answer, and that tree was totally alive and thriving. Typically, you'll see a pile of sawdust at the bottom of it if the core is like falling out, and that's definitely a sign that it's further along in its decay. But as long as the outside of the tree is alive, it's alive, but like not like dead. Yes. Oh no, yeah, no, that tree was completely stable. I mean, a big wind would have blown it over, that's actually great, because like think about like why like this tree is like, it's not going to blow over. Its roots are way deeper than what we think. So I can explain this. In the cracks, what happens in the roots go into the cracks, right? And then as they go in, they get rubbed on the rock itself, which sheathes off the actual cells of the roots. and that dead, dying root matter actually becomes organic matter inside the cracks, and that organic matter then feeds the bacteria that's inside the cracks. The bacteria are working to help the plant, and then there can also be fungi that comes in, but between the fungi and the bacteria, they're able to help erode the rock further, which is freeing up minerals, and then the minerals are getting fed to the plant. Yeah, and also on that, in the crack, if they encounter a crack, so they're going into the crack this way, if they find that one's going up, they can go laterally and backwards. So they can grow all like in. So it's actually probably more stable in a lot of cases than the actual soil, because the rock is so much heavier than the soil. So this tree, you can see its root coming down here, right? So its root actually extends down above the ground, above the rock. So it didn't go into the crack, it just used the crack as a channel and just kept coming down. This is whale rock, which is in Westwood. There's a trustees of the reservation property over in the Westwood area. I can't think of its name, but if you Google up the whale rock, it's a big, massive rock. And so this rock, actually, everybody is looking at it kind of because it looks like a rock, and I'm up there looking at it thinking to myself, oh my God, there's trees growing out of this rock everywhere. And like this one blows my mind. This was a cedar that was growing up right out of the face. You can even see little guys that are starting. This is on the ocean in Plymouth, by the old power plant in Plymouth. This pair of trees are just mind-boggling to me, what they've accomplished on this pile of rubble. So there's a bunch of pictures of it because I couldn't get enough of it. I just was like, how is this possible? Is the roots down underneath holding on to the bricks from the power plant? I believe you can even see somebody's love on the tree there, that they left their inscription, so everybody would know that they were loved in that moment. Just phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal. Those actually get coastal runoff. So here's one of our friends, one of our neighbors left the beer can out in the woods that wasn't mine. But this two different species of tree growing completely together next to each other, rubbing on each other. I have some audio, I think, with this one. So done. I'm like, I can't handle this creaking noise. Like, you got to make it stop.
But then just rubbing against each other?
Yeah. It's like how, like, and that happens all through the forest. There's so many places where the trees are like grown over each other, or the one fell and now they're rubbing. And that noise, that's abrasive. That wasn't comfortable. The music that I was playing in the beginning was nice and soothing. You guys were all chilled down from that. That sound, not so much, right? So if you were there, it wouldn't be cool. So this is actually recent. This was this past summer in Quincy. This is a silver maple. Silver maples grow really fast. So I was looking at this tree thinking to myself, this thing's a monster. It must be 300 years old. I can't believe how big it is. So typically they last in an urban setting around 130 years. So this tree wasn't actually quite as old as I thought it was. And the lady who lived there actually remembered the size of it when she was a kid, and she'd lived there her whole life. So it was But what's really cool about this tree is the back of it. It had grown through the neighbor's fence, so the fence is all through, and it totally consumed the post, right? It just grew right around it. Like, I get upset about a little splinter in my finger. This guy's got a whole entire pipe in it and the fence that it took with it. Yeah, I love that. Silver maple are gorgeous trees. They sometimes get a...
For a yard, a small yard with a tree like that, you gotta take a hit.
It's going to take down a bunch of garage or something when it goes, and it's going to go. It's not going to go forever. So just kind of, everybody has rhododendron around. You see them all over. They're very common in our yards. And exactly. That's why I put these in here, is because who knew that rhododendron actually would grow like this? So they can get quite large. That one got hacked off and was like still growing. But yeah, they're totally, yeah, that's why I put them in, because I knew someone would go like, what? They get like that? I'm like, yeah, they actually do. So. Norris, you know where there is, at the Whitney Thayer Woods, it got taken down in one of our storms, but there was an actual native rhododendron in there that's native to our area, and people would come from around the world to see it because it was actually like the right rhodey for that place. And there's also flame azalea there if you're looking for a really cool shrub to see in the... Yeah, they're really nice. Oh, they were only like this. They weren't. But how tall were they? They were about 30 or 40 feet tall. Yeah, they were huge. I couldn't believe, and they're all like blown around, like they totally were trashed. So this is kind of our weathering the storm area. So this tree blew down. It was blocking the path, so it got cut, and it was like, well, I'm not going to give up, and it was totally sprouting new branches out, right? So this is, it's not a willow, but a willow tree would be super comfortable, or just a branch from a willow tree would be super happy. This is actually in Norris Reservation. I was walking along looking at this big chunk of tree thinking to myself, what the heck happened here? And it had blown down, and there you can see where it was. It was that part that you saw was the flat part from the Y, and it just had split off, but it's the other half is still there. It's still thriving. You can see it. It's still over there. I saw it today, actually. It's still laying there, and that tree is still growing with half of its self laying on the ground. This is my favorite. This is also in Norwell. I just can't even. An old stone wall next to the stream. I think they can choose whatever they want. That's why we're talking about this, because this is the whole entire thing, is that moment where I thought I needed to see more trees overcoming adversity. My life totally went in that direction. Like, if I can do it, why can't the trees do it, right? Which is actually one of the slides that I have that kind of stand up might be next. Oh, that was a perfect segue, Zoe. Very good job. So. This is about DNA, right? So if these trees are overcoming all this adversity, right, and overcoming weather, growing out of rocks, getting blown down, cut, regrowing, regenerating, splitting in half, all the things that they're doing, why can't we, right? Why can't we? And so this is just kind of a quick little science on DNA, right? Because what my point is that we share DNA with trees. Obviously, we share the most amount of DNA with chimpanzees, which is 98.8%, but we share 70% of our DNA with slugs. Imagine that, 70% with the slug, right? That's, a lot of people are like, ooh, but like whatever, slug. 50% of our DNA is the same as that in trees. So when we go into nature, we're there with our relatives. We're related to the trees. Their DNA is the same exact spiral that our DNA is made out of. In fact, everything in nature is that same spiral. Trees grow in a spiral. If you look at a tree from the top and you look at the way the branches grow, they grow in a spiral. Sunflowers grow in a spiral. Everything in nature is growing in a spiral. The spiral is what our DNA is. The creation, the cosmos is in spirals. Everything is, in fact, actually a spiral. We share 44% of our DNA with honeybees. Love that we can buzz around. And 25% with daffodils. And 50% with bananas. That's just bananas. I put that tree in there because I love old time pictures like that. Don't pay attention to anything that's on there. It's mostly nonsense. But I just love that. All right, so if we share so much in common with them, at least on a cellular level, at least in our creation, then it would make a lot of sense for us to just embrace them. Right? I hugged a tree today. Do not be afraid to go out and give a tree a hug. Nobody's going to care if they see you hugging a tree. They're going to be envious for sure, because they're going to be wishing that they had the humility to hug the tree themselves and share with that tree. It's energy. Share with that tree. It's the gift that it's giving to us and to the forest. Another one of my very favorite places, this is Black Pond Bog over in Norwell, If you haven't been there, it's super easy to get to the bog. It's literally a couple hundred yards, maybe 500. It's not a lot. It's so good. So very truly I tell you, I planted this with a seed, with a thought. That was it, right? So I thought to myself, I want to see more trees overcoming adversity, and we're only halfway in terms of what we are, but I just wanted to share this little inspiration with you because this is so cool. That's why the squirrels bury the red oak seeds and eat the white oak seeds within the season, because the red oak ones take 2 years for them to turn into something, so they can store them for later and have them for the next year. That's very cool. Like, that's just like seriously 67 days in a glass of water. What would you do in 67 days in a glass of water? You'd turn into a raisin. So this is where I'm going to kind of shift just for a moment into gratitude for the trees themselves. This is truly when I started to realize, this is what I told the lady at the Blue Hill that really is gratitude. So here we are with some more murk and just being grateful for, you'll see why I have this in 1 second, but just think about what the trees do for us. We don't have the ability to take the H off of the O2 from the water to make oxygen, right? Unconditionally, they don't ask for anything in return, yet they give us the air that we breathe. We don't exist without the trees and then the algae, right? So the first picture is the algae. So love is like oxygen. Trees produce 28% of the world's oxygen. The rest of it comes from the plants in the oceans and others. But it just occurred to me, they don't even ask for anything. They give unconditionally to us the air that we breathe. So when I'm hugging the tree, I'm saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for all of the air that I breathe. I can't exist without you. I cannot do this. I don't have the ability to do that chemical process, to separate the H from the O2 to the O so that I can breathe, right? I don't have that capacity, and I don't exist without the help of other plants, right? And especially to me, the trees being the sentient, the tall, the standout that But really, it is the murk, right? Which is why I have the pictures of the murky stuff in the presentation. It's just to pay homage to the fact that the soup, the gloop, the glop that's growing in the ponds is having a huge impact on the air that we breathe. So I'm just going to kind of share some giving that knows no end, right? So the trees, beyond that they give us the oxygen, they're giving back to the forest. They're feeding other animals. They're providing shade. They're cooling the air. They're collecting water and allowing it to drip to the forest floor. So they collect nutrients and they help the soil. They feed biology within the soil. So there's a huge interconnection between what the plants are doing. But then just as they decompose, they're feeding other plants, right? They're giving back their life source to other plants, right? And to other creatures that make homes in them. There's so much that they're doing, right? So here we have this, again, the tree growing out of the rock, and its roots are massive, coming all the way down the edge of the cliff, down to, this is at Odie's Den in Whitney Thayer Woods. But look at what it's doing. Not only was it reaching down the rock, but it's making a home for the oak and for this little pine. So it's giving back in another way that it is totally inadvertent. The leaves and the stuff are collecting there and decaying and turning to the soil on the surface of the rock, but its roots are then holding in place a spot for other things to take hold and germinate. What a gift, right? All the moss and everything else that's living in there. There's insects that are hiding underneath. It's just such an amazing gift that they're giving back. Oh, and then I happen upon a rock in the path, just to remind me what I am again. I am love. I am healthy. I am healing. I'm in the forest, so I'm back to my roots, back to where I come from. Then a tree blows over, right? And think about what happens now. Like the tree is blown over and the wood is going to decay. It's going to go back into the forest. It's going to help other things. But even here, this hump of dirt has become home to so many things. Look at these saplings. Imagine that. Imagine that's where they chose to live, right? This is where they've decided is their spot. And their roots are all exposed, and they're totally thriving, right? They're on this big mound of dirt that's totally eroding away every time it rains. It just becomes more and more of a precarious place to live, right? But they don't give up. They just keep going, right? They're just like, yeah, we're going to turn this pile of dirt into a place where there's going to be, whether they make it or not, they don't care. Because if they fall down, they're just going to feed the soil and rebuild the soil, and something else is going to grow. I just can't get over these guys. Look at how it's hanging on the edge of this pile. This is Norris Reservation also. This is right on the edge of the path at Norris Reservation. How many times do we walk by these things and we don't even notice, right? I just am like, it wouldn't have been for that moment where I was like, I need to see more trees growing out of adversity. That changed my awareness. It's that power of awareness that we have when we can think a thought that then turns into intention that helps us guide where we are and what we pay attention to. So yeah, I had that I started taking pictures of these things, but I would never have stopped and noticed those little saplings growing out of this pile of dirt in such adverse conditions, and wouldn't have been so inspired to just keep going back, which every time I'm in the woods, I know I'm healing. I'm better and better every time I'm there. So then that's helping me, but that's helping other people, because now everywhere I go, wherever I go, I'm in a much better mood. I'm much happier. People cut me off in traffic. I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter, because I got to go see trees. Wait, there's a tree over there that's growing out of adversity. Go ahead. Take it. You just go. Go away. Go on your way. I don't care, because I have more important things to do, like this. To see these trees that are growing out of mounds of dirt on the sides of paths in the woods. It's much more exciting, way better way to live, right? This is one of my also favorites. Again, a big hump of dirt, but you can see through, like there was a window, and then this tree is growing right out of that spot. This is down in Pembroke. amazing. Like just the tree falls over and they just spring right up, right? They've been waiting there. You know how long those seeds were laying there, or that the little saplings were hanging out just waiting for that other big tree to grow and give them the opportunity? It's so cool. Giving that knows no end. Infinity, that's where they go. That's what their goal is just to, in perpetuity forever, to allow their kind to keep going unconditionally. Here's the stump with the sapling growing right out of the stump, given over to the moss. Someone did that for me. They knew I was coming. I didn't do that. I don't have that kind of patience. I got more things to see, but look at that. Right on the path, somebody made a heart for me. Again, I am love. They knew I was coming. So just want to just kind of talk about cooperation. And cooperation, what's going on in the soil is truly, this is the little bit of the science lesson that I talked about. 90% of all plants on the planet have formed a symbiotic relationship with the fungi in the soil. And so they're going to exchange resources. The plants have the ability to convert sun into sugar, which they excrete out of their roots in exchange for minerals that they receive from the fungi and different bacteria. So there's always a web of life that's going on below our feet, right? But the fungi are playing a major role in it. The fungi are so sensitive that they can feel the vibrations of our feet. They can feel when a tree falls over, the vibration of that tree falling down, that crashing. When they say no one knows when a tree falls in the forest, the fungi know, because that's new food. That's fresh for them. So they're going to make their fruit, which has the spores in it, which is the mushroom, so that their spores can drift over and land on that fresh fallen wood, because there's a lot more sugar in that wood, because the sugar is in the tree that they can then just go have for free. They don't have to do anything in exchange for it. There's an immense network throughout the whole entire forest that is exchanging information and resources. The trees are also sharing information and resources with each other, not just with the fungi. There's all kinds of amazing other people's studies and books that are out there that talk about all of these things. I have like some notes here, and I intentionally didn't create anything for this presentation other than just thoughts and some brief guideline, because I wanted it to come from my heart. I wanted it to be authentic to my experience, versus if I were to read a bunch of books and then be able to give you a bunch of information verbatim from what's out there. This is based on what my experience has been with the trees, and so I meant to say that at the beginning, but that's okay. All these are, again, photographs. I take so many pictures of mushrooms because I love them. There's so many types of mushrooms, and every mushroom has a specific place, temperature, and time that it flourishes in the forest. And so you can literally walk depending on the temperature, depending on the season, and the color of the mushrooms changes. And Norris Reservation is a fabulous place to see this. There's at least 24 different colorful types of mushrooms just that you'll see out in concert throughout the whole entire Norris Reservation, where you go through there and you'll be like, oh, there's those orange ones again. And then you come around the corner and there's those orange ones again. And literally they're out all at the same time. And then you come back a week later and the orange ones are all gone. And then there's some brown ones, or then there's the purple ones, or there's these oozy ones, or then the shelf type ones come out, which I think I have pictures of the shelf type, or these little bitty ones. I can't even get over this. Like, this made me so happy. Look at that. So amazing. This little, they were like this big, just totally on this one log, just going bonkers, right? Like, how vibrant is that? Like, so incredible. These are your shelf mushrooms, right? Look at this. This is incredible, right? And so then these ones will all be out, right? And it's just certain time, certain temperature, certain moisture amounts, then they'll be out in concert, like doing their thing. It's like, it's art. It's just there for us. So going to kind of move into just the internals of the tree just consider, you know, each year of a tree's life is marked in a ring, you know, that we can see when it falls. You can count them if you want, but you can just kind of get an idea of how long the trees have been. You know, they're all similar in that sense. They all have that same pattern to how they expand and grow over the course of their existence. So I have a couple of my favorites here, again with the mushrooms, but this one on the right is special in a certain way. That's part of the USS Constitution, so it's old, right? It's 227 years that's been, right? That it had grown for all that time and then been preserved, and I just love like that you can see it's exposed, you can see where they've been preserving it, but just to think like how even after they've been cut down, they can still endure, you know, they're still being cared for in certain ways. Just a little bit of inspiration that I find that, you know, trees are very artistic, nature is artistic, there's just art is part of life. Like life is art, right? Like art is life, life is art when we live well, when we look at things, right? So we're still kind of in the growth, right? And I found this is also at Norris Reservation. Just kind of, oh, wait, that's how the branches grow on the inside of a tree, right?
You've seen them.
How cool is that? Oh, just get a little bit closer, and all of a sudden now those things, like to me, like I'm okay with that. If that's on my wall, like that's as good as a lot of art I've seen, especially modern art. Sorry to be a critic, but I just love that like simple downed piece of wood can be so much more if you take the time to explore it a little closer, or just to think about what's happening there and see, you know, wow, like that's the branch, but that's how the tree grew around the branch, but it still holds on to that ringing pattern even around the branches. Here's just the stump, but it lost part of its rings, right? Reminds me of the sky and a blue and just kind of just doing its thing. Odd shapes, right? But there's spaces in between. That's one of my favorite things about music and things about life, is the little spaces in between that often get ignored. Like there's so much more to life that's in the cracks and crevices when we take the time to just kind of be there and see through things, right? So get a little bit closer. I see a guy up in there. I see an owl's face. There's so many things that I can just possibly stand there and try and imagine. What do I see here? Is that a slug coming out of there? What's in that crack? Like what's happening inside there? And this moss, right? But like the tree's roots growing out almost in a star. Just reaching out, growing out for life, helping the moss stay in place. I wouldn't have noticed this. Again, I would have never noticed this. I'm just looking at a stump, right? I'm looking at a log that's decaying on the forest floor. But then I looked a little closer and realized that there was this circle from where a branch had been. That's the scar over it. And then I'm like, maybe I could take a picture through there and kind of capture like the forest beyond, but use this piece of decaying wood as the frame, right? I'm not saying that these are artistic photos, but it's just it's the idea that this thing fell over and I would have just walked right by it, but I had changed my attention to be like looking for things that stood out as the forest evolves, as the forest decays, how it uses it. Actually, there's something really cool. I'm loving that, like right up in there, those like bits of the bark in like a swirl. So cool. When a tree loses its branch, if you cut it off, it has the ability to actually heal over. And so that picture through was actually a scar. It was actually a scab over a place where the tree had lost its branch. Every tree has the ability. So if you cut the branch off of a tree and you leave just enough of the the branch out, like this much out, then the tree will have the ability to be able to then regrow over that and heal itself. So if you cut flush to the tree and cut right to the bark, no chance that's going to happen. But if you allow it, it will re-heal it. So there's a lot of forgiveness within the actual skin and the bark of the tree. Here we have a fairy pool that this tree has created, or a chipmunk watering hole right at the base of its tree, the trunk. And again, another one where it just kind of scabbed over, but you can still see the rings of the tree on the inside. And it tried so hard. Forgiveness is huge. It really is, starting with ourselves. We got to forgive ourselves. There's so much forgiveness that we need to do for ourselves and for other people, for our family members, for our friends. There's no use, and this is one of the things that's come into my life since I've been doing this, is just there's no use in carrying on with grudges and with, things that we think people did to us. It just isn't worth it. It's especially things that you think you did to yourself, things that you think you might regret. What? You're here now. Like, it's so much better just to be like, I am forgiven. I forgive myself. So love this concept here, right? So it's the eagle eye, right? The eagle soars, right, above the landscape, right? And so the eagle has one eye that can see everything, and then the other eye can see all the way down on the ground to see a chipmunk simultaneously. That's how I want to be. I want to be able to see the whole big picture, but also still be able to pay attention and focus in on the details, right? So this is part of this experience, is that there's all these grand things in the whole forest, but coming back down to where my feet are, to where I'm looking through the crack, there's also something exciting happening there where I can learn different perspectives, and then just accept those different perspectives. And not be self-conscious also at the same time, to be walking somewhere and like in a professional setting and be like, oh wait, sorry, look at the cedar tree over here, it's growing off of this, you're gonna have to give me a minute, and I'm over there taking a picture because I'm like, I gotta have this cedar tree that's growing off of the edge of this rock, right? That's in Quincy. So I love that picture, it's so cool. Thanks to that's the Wall Street Journal. All right, so the oldest trees, right? So this is Tajiko. So this is over 9,500 years old. And so it's the actual tree itself is not. It's a colonial type of tree, so it grows from its roots. It's not a seed producer. So it doesn't actually produce seeds and make sprouts. It only pollinates from its roots, right? So this tree's roots have been in that place for over 9,000 years, and it can sprout up. So this is up in a not a great place to live, but the roots can keep living and growing under the soil. So if you just Google world's oldest trees, there's a list, and so the two that I put in here are the top two, and they're both this colonial type of tree. Most of the oldest trees are this. And this is the second one, and I obviously didn't take that picture. But the aspen, it's a runner, right? So it sends out roots and pops up. This particular tree is it's 106 acres, and it's one tree. And so they've done like DNA testing all around the whole thing, and they found that this is all one tree. It all shares the same exact DNA. 106 acres, one tree.
Bears.
This is in, it's not Colorado, it's one, yeah, it's near Colorado, it's either Colorado or, yep. So this is, if you're really interested, definitely it's worth Googling, because there's a bunch. There's some that are even older than this. There's some in Australia that are more like a bush they estimate at 30,000 years. Right, and it's phenomenal. In Japan, they have trees that are 700 years old that have been just in a courtyard, like that they've been taken care of like for 700 years. They have the bonsai trees that are 700 years old too, like that have been in a pot, right? I mean, so talk about adversity, right? Living in a pot for 700 years. All right, so now we're going to get into what is when I had my realization about how magnificent and how much adversity the trees are capable of. So what we're talking about is my brothers and my sisters. Like, I want to look at everybody and everywhere I go as if they're my brother, my sister, my mother, or my father, or my grandparents, or my sons or daughters. That way everybody is my family, and it takes so much judgment out of life, right? But I started to realize that as we're here, this is in Redwood National Forest. That's my son climbing up. But this all happened. I said in 2020, I need to see more trees in adversity. A year and a half later, my son is like, Dad, let's go to California. And we're going to take the train. And we took the train from Boston to San Francisco. When we got there was wildfires. And we couldn't take the train up the coast, but the only ticket we had back was from Portland, Oregon. So we ended up renting a car. And the experience that ended up happening was that we stayed in Redwood National Forest and in the Great Dunes National Forest Park in Oregon. So we camped, and the experience that what you understand when you're around the redwoods. So like my thinking is here in Massachusetts, I'm like asking the sparrow, the little trees here being the sparrow, how the eagle soars, and the redwoods would be the eagle, right? They're so immense and so massive, but they're so intricately tied to their ecosystem. They don't exist without the fog that rolls off of the ocean every day. So their moisture, they're intricately tied to the water cycle. They create their own rain. There's all these things that are, if you want somewhere to put on your bucket list, this is the place. So here's my son climbing up a stump. And what I mean by this is like Christmas. It's like all of a sudden you have this experience, right? Here he is on a stump, right? But what I want you to notice is that this stump doesn't have a ring of trees around it, right? So do you see how this tree on the left has a ring of trees around it? And same with that one back over there. Those ones are the tree. It got cut down, and then from its roots, like you were saying with the beech trees, like they sprout, right? So it's actually still the tree, right? But it's not. It is, but it isn't. The roots are still there. So they estimate them around 700 years when we came through and cut them down, or 2 or 3. Don't hold me to that one. But when you get up there and we're standing up there on the stump, and I started looking through this grove of trees that had all been clear cut. They cut down every tree in the whole entire grove, right? And I'm looking and I'm like, we're standing on this stump, and in a ring around this stump, there is trees that have sprouted from their stumps, but this tree did not sprout. And what I realize is that I'm standing on the grandfather or the great-grandfather or the grandmother, whatever it may be, that had literally given up its life force through its roots. It sent out its energy into its children. It gave up its own life for its children. And I'm not making this up. They actually know that this is true, but I didn't know until I saw it, and it literally took my breath away. I'm standing there and I'm like, wait a second. How amazing is it that they actually wanted their offspring to survive so much that they gave up their own life, right? Like, we make movies about this stuff. It's like superheroes and things like that. But like, how many times in real life do people actually sacrifice themselves for the sake of their community, right? Because this is what they're doing. They're giving it up for the community, right? And so then we go walking, right? And we find this other one. And now this is when it gets really intense for me, because I'm like, all right, so now I'm seeing that there's this pattern through the forest of the trees giving up themselves for the betterment of the community. And then we came onto this one. And this one wasn't willing to give up. It did the sprouts, but it had been through a fire. So it had burned, right? And regenerated, right? So then I start taking a little bit closer of a look at this guy. And I'm realizing that, wait a second, here is the stump of the old tree, but I can see that part of it is still bark, right? And so when you asked about how you can tell if a tree is still alive, it's because you can look and see that the bark is still intact and still there. Well, half of this tree, and I'm talking about a stump, like this is like these aren't like trees around here, like that silver maple was like a big tree. These are big trees. Yeah, and I'm like, wait a second, and I take even closer of a look, and I start looking up, and I realize that I can see here's all this burnt out, but look at this, here's that healing scar line, right, that we saw on the branches that were cut. Here's this healing scar line, right? I look up a little bit further, and I'm like, wait a second, that healing scar line has sprouted into 2 trees all the way up at the top of this burnt down, cut like tree. It's got trees, and I'm telling you, those were trees. They weren't like little branches. They were trees on the top of this thing, right? I literally buckled to my knees. I started crying. I was so overwhelmed with joy because this tree wouldn't give up. Like all the way up, right? Look at that. It's incredible. It's sprouted, it's fairy rings, like it's like made big trees all around itself, but then it didn't give up. And from that little bit of bark that was left, it grew 2 new huge trees all the way up there. And they make it through the wind. They get through the storms. Like how? How is that possible that it has that much resilience within that little bit of bark that was left over after it got burned? Unbelievable. That's how the eagle soars to me, right? That is true resilience. If I could see through that type of eyes, if I could embrace that type of resilience, then to me, I could do anything, right? But that's the whole point of this. I can do anything. All I have to do is think it, right? I thought I want to see more trees growing out of adversity. What more do I want to do, right? I want to go around and talk to people like this all over and say these same things and get better and better and better at it. Well, why won't I? Because I'm thinking I'm going to do it, so of course that's what's going to happen. You can do that too. This is what I've learned when I came into my heart. This is the most amazing thing. And it's really not that hard. It really isn't that hard. YouTube will help you do it. All you got to do is Google up YouTube, tell me how to think from my heart, and I tell you, I'm not kidding you, there is a list of people on there that are willing to give you help. They'll talk you through it. They'll play the right music for you. You'll be there as quick as I was. Someone told me this during this whole process. If you're not listening to YouTube, you're selling yourself short, because YouTube has everything on it. There's recordings of old masters, there's painters, there's poets, there's philosophers, there's people who are talking about all sorts of amazing things that you can gain from and grow as a person. But to me, this is what helps me. This is what brings me to where I am, because I'm a forest person. I'm an earth person. Like some of us are more like star people, so you might want to do astrology type things, or some of us cook, whatever, paint, whatever it is, but embrace that side of yourself and ask for that, because it's coming from your heart, so it happens. It's based in a place of gratitude. That's what it is. It really flows out of that. That's 5 o'clock news bulletin right there for you. You will hear it all over. Gratitude heals you. Gratitude heals the people around you. Gratitude brings you to forgiveness, right? I love this as Dr. and Master Shah. When we have the humility to receive without judgment, attachment, and detachment, we can have greater power, rejuvenation, nourishment, love, peace, and abundance. How true. How true. Right? Not to be attached, not to be detached, and not to judge. That is the path. That's the path. So we can choose to nourish our minds with positivity, visualize success, and cultivate the mindset that allows us to transcend any adversity. That's what we're learning here, right? That's what I've learned from the trees, right? Love this tree reaching up, right? Half dead, but still going. Reaching to the sky. We can rise above our challenges and reach for the stars. Get it? The star-shaped stump? Yeah. It wasn't just me. And then what happens? Your friends feel it. They figure it out. And so then this popped into my email, into my phone in a text message. Friend of mine out camping. He's like, "Hey Todd, guess what I saw?" Right? We all need someone we can lean on, right? So this is why when we move into a place of gratitude and abundance, our friends are a lot more willing to come along on the journey and help us out. And that being said, you can call on me if you need a hand. I'm more than willing and would be happy to help you, talk to you, share the things that I've learned. I have an email that I call the healing email with a bunch of links in there that I would be happy to share with you guys. Because this is my buddy. He's like, "Hey Todd, check it out," right? So another gift that somebody left for me. And I believe it. I love you. I love you all for being here. I love that person for leaving me that message, right? It's just that easy, is to accept what we are, which is love, and then pour that out on everybody, everywhere you go. It's changing my life every breath, every day. It gets better and better and better every single day because I tell people I love them. Strangers, I love you. I love you all. I love you all for being here. I love you for being on this journey. I love you for being open to this experience. And I know that you guys are going to have more in your lives just because you were here today that you don't even understand. I don't even understand. I just know that this is what happens, and I believe it in every cell in my entire body, that when we open ourselves up to our heart, to gratitude, the things that happen are like this. You're walking on the beach and somebody leaves a little note for you, just to remind you that you're loved, and you are, and you're worth it too. That's for sure. And then just one last slide, just something that happened to me. I started making art in all of this, and that's one of my my pieces. It's the one that came. I was like, maybe you should throw some of your art in, and that was the first one I came to. So that's what you get to see. I was showing Zoe because I want to put them all up in here, but. So that's all I have for you guys. I'm so grateful that you were here. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did, especially you, Zoe, for helping me put this on and being there. You're a super rock star here, and Norwell owes you a debt of gratitude for all you do for the library and for our community.